it allows me to show up better every single day, right? Like just there's somebody out there who's talking about I forget who it was. It's like 1% better every day,
Yeah.
and I'm a big believer in that. Is right. Is the more I become aware of me and how I may react or what's coming up for me, the better I can take that and do something with it that's productive, whatever it is. And the journey continues because it always does. It's actually never ending. There is no destination, right?
Indeed.
And once I realized there's no destination, it's like, oh, okay, right. This is just about maneuvering through anything that comes my way at any point in time, and taking responsibility for it. Be brutally honest in a dignified, caring way. Where, hey, I'm going to tell you this. This is what's going on in my mind. I'm going to tell you this because I care about you, and I'm working to try to get you unstuck. And what I noticed, especially like in the sales process with coaching or consulting clients, I even use the brutal honesty there because it's what identifies ideal prospects versus people who just aren't ready. And I said just aren't ready specifically because I think everybody wants to grow and learn and exceed. They're just not ready, right? There's something going on. They don't want to make that choice, but the right people go, God. There was one lady where super powerful.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders, take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment. In a few seconds, you just jumped from your head to your heart, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode. I'm your host, Nico van der Venne, confidant to successful CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Welcome to the Everlasting Podcast with our next guest, Bryan McDonald. He's a partner on a beautiful company called On Purpose Growth. He's been in sales for 24 years. My God, man, you must have done a lot of cool stuff there. In his past 10 years, he's been serving ambitious entrepreneurs to meet or even exceed, and I think it's especially the exceed, their revenue goals through sales coaching and consulting. Hi, Bryan. Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the invitation, Nico. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We've had a wonderful conversation in the green room already, child stuff and
Yeah.
go on and, mine climbing mountains and gold medals and stuff like that. So, yeah, you were talking about the, excuse me, about the weekend that was going on in the, tell me about that because it kind of intrigues me of what stuff that you're actually doing right there, which how it relates to you. I think that's interesting as well.
Oh yeah. In like 2015 or 16, there was uh, a informal men's group that I was a part of. That um, a guy that mentored basically everybody in the group that was part of it. He came back from a weekend and said, "Hey guys, uh, I just went to a men's weekend to support a client of mine, to help him out. And unknowingly to me, I needed it. And it was the greatest thing that I've ever done. I can't tell you what happens. I think you all should go." And because we trusted him, uh, everybody but one guy signed up. The one guy was the one person a part of the group that hadn't been mentored from him previously. He was just a friend of a friend of a friend,
Uh-huh.
and it was uh, it was okay. It was life changing for me. And in context, uh, I've probably spent between coaching, mentoring, uh, uh, personal growth weekends or weeks, about 90,000 US dollars. And this was 250 US dollars, and it was more powerful than all those combined. It was the
Wow.
cheapest, and the most powerful. And what happened was I went to one of the weekends. Then I started staffing, and then about 3 years ago, I found myself board president because the founder visionary of the organization was basically saying, "Hey, he's a true visionary. He's like, hey, I'm a bull in a china shop. I want this to go really far, and uh, and and if I keep running this, that's not going to happen, right?
Okay.
So he had to find somebody to take over, and there was a lot of guys that are saying, "Yeah, I want to be part of this, but I want to run it," and I didn't want it to go away, so I threw my hat in the ring, and it was one of the most challenging and rewarding things I've ultimately done. And what we do is we do men's weekends all across the U.S. We call them
Hmm.
communities, right? So it's right now there's one happening in the Midwest, South Bend, Indiana. Today it starts. I just launched New York. We have a Tennessee, Mississippi, Texas. Uh, yeah, and that's it. And basically, it's helping men uh,
Hmm.
become better fathers, husbands, men in general, to break through trauma that they either know they have or they discover on the weekend, and really to help take care of their inner child. Because what I've
Hmm.
learned to be true is um, every time, let's say, I go sideways emotionally, it's actually my inner child reacting to it, right? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
the kid when I was growing up that wanted to be loved and accepted and paid attention to, by my parents. One, because they were divorced when I was one. My mom got married. Actually three times. But anyway, I've learned on those weekends on how to understand why I react to things, why I think, and why I operate the way that I do, so that
Hmm.
therefore I was going to say have more control, but that's not the word. More understanding of what's going on, so I can make different choices or better choices. Right. So
Hmm.
it's been, I mean, life changing. It's a full time job I do on the side next to my business.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's positive ambition, I would say. Yeah.
I was thinking about this yesterday uh, or a couple of days ago. Um, the more I grow and stretch myself in that organization, and the more I help other men, it's like my business grows, right? It's like as I grow, my business grows. It's
Mhm.
fascinating because I'm part of a CEO group, and I was expressing how frustrated I was about wanting to do more in my business and having a lot to do and with this nonprofit, and they were trying to tell me to give it up. And I was thinking to myself, no, it's not giving it up. It's just uh, uh, working this differently because the that organization is is a part of me, right?
Mhm.
It's part of
Mhm.
who I am. I think you said that like maybe in the green room or something. It's just like part of who I am. I can't
Yeah.
give it up. I just have to figure out how to do it differently so I can do more of both my business and that.
Yeah, I can believe that. To be honest, I find it amazing when somebody actually, gets full blown into a nonprofit story next to a full blown business because entrepreneurship is high tier sports. We tell each other here all the time, you could go to the gym and all of that stuff, but entrepreneurship, you're on all the time. And then answer, going out into that nonprofit and probably hitting a lot of weekends as well, that you're taking your time for that as well. So it never stops, which is fun. Probably, you get your fulfillment. And that's where I find, to me as well, I have, I have these spiritual groups I go to.
Mhm.
They're really open stuff. We discuss any kind of stuff,
Yep.
whatever. Read really deep people stuff, and world stuff. I call it stuff. So uh,
I know. I
um,
understand that.
so and even there's these conversations, these deep conversations that you do not have with anybody else around yourself. You know, your own family is so disconnected from the story that you bring into the world, because you're different in way of thinking and so on. And one of the things that I've learned in working with inner child stories is that even that little Nico, like, well, now 40 years ago, I was 5 years old. Now I'm 45. If I
Yeah.
look at the picture, I still have my own picture with my bear next to me, and I
Yep.
always reference that a little bit in my posts sometimes, as well as I look at him and I'm saying, you got there, dude. You, you,
Yep.
you really did it. You're here. You've got your own company. You've shown what you've done. Blah blah blah, and it's that work is so powerful that I completely understand what you mean by being fulfilled by doing that. And then on the other side, I can imagine that by doing that, you understand if you're in a sales conversation and you're sitting there with a man in front of you,
Yep.
you know his story a lot better than he even does.
Oh, totally. Yeah, here's how powerful this is, right? I'll take it out of me. So I have a client, Jason, who I grew up in Pennsylvania, and so did he. So we kind of have that connection. But he lives in Atlanta, Georgia now. I'm in Chicago, and he's the type of person that's always yearning to learn. Like, how can I figure out more about myself? So I invited him to one of these weekends, and he came. He's like, that was, I don't know what that was, but that was awesome. And he was sitting in front of a client who in Cleveland, right? And it was a lady who bought the family business. They're manufacturing. I don't know if they're like 10 or 20 million, a nice sized business.
Mm-hmm.
And he's consulting her, and he noticed that from listening to her,
Uh-huh.
that she didn't actually want to be there. And her husband's part of the business, and when her husband left the room, he's just like an engineer. Her husband left the room, he got into the raw real with her, and she broke down crying, saying, yeah, you're right, like, my biggest problem is I don't want to be here, and I don't want to be the one that from this family that trashes this business. And now they have a relationship that he can genuinely help her figure out what to do with this business. And there's not a facade, or you're
Mm.
talking way below the surface level. So,
Yeah.
it's powerful stuff, right? To help
Yeah,
people get what they
absolutely. Yeah.
actually want.
Yeah. It's excuse me, one of the things that I've noticed in these in any form of helping others, is complete silence.
Oh,
Yeah, what I mean by that is a lot of people are, oh, you have to listen, blah blah blah, active listening, whatever. Yeah, absolutely, that's right. But how do you do it? It's by being silent. Is by actually listening to the presence of the person. It's not only what they're saying, it's really being concentrating on what's happening around the person, because like 10% is vocal and all the rest is physical. And
correct.
I learned this as well when I was in IT sales. And I told you earlier, we were like a tandem guy, and
Yeah.
I was a solution architect. He was a sales guy. His name was Glenn, and so he was black, and I don't know if that's conventionally correct expressions these days, but
That's
anyway, you
right.
know what I mean.
I know.
And so we come into a client's office, and it's usually, he's looked at, oh my god, he needs my money, and the other, I was sitting there and they were like, oh, he's my solution.
Yeah.
And to break the ice, each time we were like, the standard question is, so you want to have a coffee,
Mhm.
start off the conversation, you want to have a coffee. And I always say, yeah, I would love a coffee. And they ask, sugar and milk. And once you go black, you never come back. So the guy sitting next to me, so the first time I said that, he was looking at me, what the?
I love
And then
it.
each time we went to a customer, it was amazing the effect of that, just that one line. And he was like, yeah, well, what can you do?
Yep.
He's a solution guy.
Yep. Yep.
But, and then you saw the face and the complete expression of the person in front of you completely changing, like, oh wow, I can just talk to these people, because
Yeah.
it's such a zone of, oh no, will this be mentioned? will this be said or something like that, and you break the ice, and then it's smooth sailing after that. You have a real good conversation with somebody, and it's where the silence comes in after that, of really listening to the conversation, well, the monologue basically of the other
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you know, oh, that's the problem there, and that's going to go there, and I'll find this, solution there. And of course, then you go back to the office, you give them three solutions: high end, low end, middle end. You want to sell the middle end.
yeah, exactly.
That's easy peasy. But yeah, but I can understand, and I have the experience as well, that a lot of people do not even know about the inner child story.
Oh,
Uh, how does that, end up with you yourself? You know that you're successful in your business. You're a CEO. You've done a lot of stuff. 24 years is a very nice story to tell. So how's that helped you in the challenges that you've met along the way?
um, the first thing that comes to mind is, based on my childhood and my inner child, I want to be affirmed and accepted by everyone. So I used to be a people pleaser. I used to avoid conflict, uh, healthy or not,
Hmm.
and that would get in my way. And when I realized how to quiet that or take care of that part of me, the real
Hmm.
me could show up, and the real me is loved and accepted by other people. Right? It's magnetic. And in sales, as you probably know, there's a lot of rejection. So
Yes.
needing to be affirmed
Mm.
and avoiding, and you have to have healthy conflict. You have to agree with people or disagree with people in a respectful way to help them get unstuck or see something that they're not seeing. So the fact that one, I got through that, and I took care of that part of me is one of the reasons why I started having a ton of success, and
Mhm.
specifically in my business as a CEO. It helped me create an awareness of what I was responsible for in any
Uh,
situation, right? Like in an argument or something not working or
yeah.
whatever. Like, hey, what was I responsible for?
Mhm.
And how did I not, respond to it the right way, maneuver through it the right way? And it allows me to show up better every single day, right? Like just
Yeah.
there's somebody out there that's talking about, I forget who it was. It's like 1% better every day,
Yeah.
and I'm a big believer in that. Is right. Is the more I become aware of me and how I may react or what's coming up for me, the better I can take that and do something with it that's productive, whatever it is. And one of the reasons why I took the board president is because um, it would force me to learn how to delegate and be a true leader, because that organization is bigger than my business, right?
Okay.
Right? Uh, there's a board, there's a leadership team, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw the little boy in me wants
Mhm.
to avoid conflict by not getting myself into something like that. And I just threw myself to the wolves and saying, hey, I'm going to learn how to maneuver through something like this because it's going to help me grow my business at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And what you said earlier about being honest with your customers,
Mm.
in an essence, where you actually small conflict story, I would say. It's not something that you're really going to shout at each other, but
Yeah.
I've learned within all the coachings that I've been doing is radical truth
Oh,
is
yeah.
really, really bang on. And in the beginning, when I started, it was like I was scared of doing that because this is the person in front of you is paying you for the services that you deliver. So if I don't deliver good services, I will lose the customer. And by being brutally honest, sometimes you might offend somebody and they might stop the whole track, the whole program. So that was kind of a scared point for me to not do it. And then once I had it was a WhatsApp conversation. That was kind of it's a lot easier when you do it with a digital system. Like it's like going on
Exactly.
Facebook and giving you comments. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I was on the phone, and he was like talking, and yeah, it was basically he wasn't taking action. He was almost every time I heard him was like, oh yeah, something came up, and I didn't start this, and I didn't start. And at some point I was like, I'm fed up with this. I am so fed up with this inaction and getting the same answers all the time, because as a coach you want to see people grow, and
Yeah, that's the
sometimes
point.
it takes time, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's where the point was there, that I said, okay, I told him really literally, I'm going to be radically honest with you, and this
Mhm.
might break our relationship, but I think you really need to hear this. And I actually repeated everything that he said, and I said, read this out loud to yourself and tell me how this feels.
Yep.
And I went on, and then got into in the question part and so on. And I think it was 2 weeks later we had a one-on-one call, and he was anxious. He told me afterwards he was really anxious to call me, and I was
Wow.
anxious to call him. It was
Yeah.
like an amazing situation. So we started our conversation, and he actually told me, since we've done that, I've taken so many actions that I've been postponing all the time, because you told me, and not just the surface but the inner me, get out of the chair and start doing stuff, because otherwise you won't get anywhere. And
Yep.
those are the things that are amazing, that you kind of enjoy those
Yes.
things happening. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think, and you'll probably, I'm sure you're going to get this or you experience it. Um, I learned how to be brutally honest in a dignified, caring way where, hey, I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you this.
Hmm.
This is what's going on in my mind. I'm going to tell you this because I care about you, and
Yes.
I'm working to try to get you unstuck. And what I noticed, especially like in the sales process um, with coaching or consulting clients, I even use the brutal honesty there
Hmm.
because it, it's what identifies ideal prospects versus people who just aren't ready. And,
Yeah.
I said just aren't ready specifically because I think everybody wants to grow and learn and exceed.
Hmm.
They're just not they're just not ready, right? There's something going on. They don't want to make that choice, but the right people go. God, there was one lady where a super powerful woman that I coach she ran a spiritual community. It was kind of like a
Hmm.
non-denominational church is the closest thing. She used to raise $1 million a year. There's some personal growth people in the world that she's friends with that you probably know, right?
Okay.
And in the
Okay.
sales process, she's talking about trading services and things like that. And I was worried she was going to ask me to trade services, and I realized like, hey, like she's stuck in a pattern of not investing in herself. So
Hmm.
like I said, hey, I noticed something, right? You're saying this. What's
Hmm.
that all about? And she goes, oh, right. Like she knew what I was asking, right? She knew what I was
Right on
asking
the head. Uh-huh.
because if I would have and if I would have uh, opted into trading services, with
Hmm.
her, she would most likely still be stuck in the place she was. It
True.
served both of us, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and at that moment, it almost kicked over between her and us. Is she not saying she didn't respect me, or at some level she looked at me uh, different, better, right?
Mhm.
Not that it was bad. Like it kind of went up a notch, and that actually allowed her, in my opinion, to commit to herself even more. Right, and it was I'm not s I respect this lady, I've known her for 20 years. I watched her
Mhm.
grow from afar, and, I was like, "Alright, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it," and I said it, and it was like, "Okay, yeah, that landed," right? Because it's taking the risk of losing. the person,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
taking the
Yeah.
risk, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not telling you this because I'm a man on an ivory post or I know everything
Mhm.
and I'm better than you.
Mm.
I'm aware of what's happening and I'm pointing it out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
you're
it.
actually touching the pain point. You're not putting salt into the wound, but you're kind of touching the pain point of, you got something right there, maybe that you need to, in a nice way, bringing it on. And indeed, the that's one of the things that my mentor told me as well a couple of years back. He said, if you're honest with somebody, it is the greatest gift that you can give, because
Mhm.
it's the only thing that helps people go forward. It's the same thing when I was in my leadership roles, and I still am these days. I got 15 people who
Oh, wow.
an amazing team that really does their job. They're really amazing. And sometimes I see them. I have to look on, seeing them walking right into a wall. They just smack on into that wall because the mistake. I could have prevented the mistake, but I had to
Yeah.
have them make the mistake. And it's the same thing with being honest. You sometimes have to give him a little pain to heal the wound.
Yeah.
I remember there was a story. I can't remember the details, but there was something like how you sometimes need to open up a wound again to clean it out and then
Yeah. Yeah.
close it
Yeah.
again. It's kind of the same thing.
100%.
A little bit more
100%.
painful, I think, but anyway, it's like
Yeah. Another way that, in line of what you're saying, another way to say it is, I'm stay by being honest, I'm staying in integrity with them and myself, right?
Mm,
Because I would be out of integrity if I notice something that is getting in their way and I don't bring it up,
true.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't own like I know what is good for everybody, right? All the
Hmm.
time. It's just my job to notice when there's hiccups, and even there was a coaching client I had where he sells. We were talking about this earlier. EOS. It's big here
Yes.
in America. He's a EOS implementer, and you know. I'm surprised he said yes to being a client, and he actually didn't pay me before his first session. I was going to ask during the first session, like, "Hey, remember to pay the invoice, right?" About halfway through, he started saying the following to me, and the coaching is all around sales. Uh, he said, and all of his peers, there's 800 of them now in the world, do get clients mostly by referrals, like 90 to 99%, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
he starts telling me, cold calling and cold marketing doesn't work. Going to associations, you know, doesn't work.
Hmm.
Going to networking meetings don't work, and referrals don't work. And I know referrals work. I help all of his peers. And I said to him, I said, so what is it about referrals that doesn't work? And he looks up in the sky. He goes, It's like begging." I said, "Okay, that's fair. I understand how somebody can think that. I'm not going to fight you about that." I said to him,
Hmm.
then, "So what do you think it could be anything else other than begging?" Looks up in the sky, goes, "Nope." I said, "Okay, last question. Uh, are you open to changing your mind about that?" And he goes, "Nope." And I told him right on the spot, "Hey, I can't help you. I don't want your money.
Hmm.
I can't help you. Like, this isn't gonna work." And he disappeared into the ether, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I had emailed him a plan, like, "Hey, here's what I think we're gonna work on." I said, "Go file that plan. You've owned
Hmm.
a business before." He sold a business. This guy owned a business and sold
Okay.
like a $10 million business, right? Uh,
Okay.
and I just felt in that moment, if I would have kept going with him and not told him the honest truth that I can't help him, that I'd be committing malpractice,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Indeed. It's so recognizable. I'm actually kind of astonished that somebody within iOS actually doesn't have the change mindset. That's the first thing that kind of comes to mind is like you're doing these
You're
process stories
Yeah,
because I think if isn't it majorly looked at as looking at in company processes and all that beautiful stuff and
yeah,
coaching
yeah.
there. So,
They call it a business
yeah,
operating system. It's
indeed.
how to plan, how to build processes, how to manage people. It's basically a mindset on how to small and medium-sized businesses up to 250 people grow and scale the business more effectively, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and it's by default, right? The people that pay to have these implementers implement are growth mindset people, and
Yeah,
this
that's
guy
what
was
I
the
would
opposite.
think.
He was
Okay.
he was closed off
That's
totally. No wonder,
interesting.
no wonder he was struggling in sales.
Yeah, well, it kind of makes it really obvious indeed.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, that's astonishing, and honestly, because I had a couple of conversations as well with coaches that I was thinking like they were telling me what to do, and I'm like, it's something I read. A coach should, because I'm in IT, I was in IT. These
yeah.
these kind of resonate with me. A coach should use zero RAM. So read
Oh,
access memory. So you
I like
should
that.
be the dumbest person in the room with the best questions.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. I do nothing but, and even within my team, they kind of get annoyed at sometimes. But that's when they get annoyed, I start enjoying my questions even more.
Yeah,
But
right.
it's like, Nico, I've got this problem. Okay, did you try something?
Yep.
I knew you were going to ask that. I that. It's like, okay, yeah. And what else did you try? Oh, really? But yeah, it works. It works. But I found it amazing. So I've had a growth mindset
Yeah.
from childhood. I've always admired and wanted to grow and go on and change. Was it's just a part of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and if I hear these stories, I'm so astonished at some point that I'm thinking like, how will you ever help your customers? For instance, within the coaching environment, that you're going to tell a customer what they need to do. One of the first things that you need to be aware of in coaching is that your customer needs to want to be coached,
Oh,
needs to
100%.
want to change. It's just the basic stuff. If that it's not there, like you said, thank you for your time. Have a great life. I do not need your money. I will not serve you because you will not get anything out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and no judgment, like, I
yeah,
say that with
exactly. Yeah,
dignity, right? Like, "Hey, I just genuinely can't help you because there's really nothing for us to work on."
yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah. There's no basis. Yeah,
no
yeah,
basis. There's no
yeah.
basis, right?
Absolutely.
It's fascinating, and I've had a growth mindset since I was a kid too because, my, my parents have been divorced since I was 1. My mom's 2nd husband, she married him, like, at man, I was, like, maybe 4, 3, 4, right? Up until maybe 6th grade, which maybe you're 12 at that time? I
Yeah.
forget, right? And he was an alcoholic, big time alcoholic. And then, I was living with my mom where I'm a mama's boy. And then for her job, she started moving around the country and she didn't want my brother and I to move. So my dad moved into the place that we were at and he was working 2 jobs. And I realized like if I want to get things or if I want to, start, moving up in the world, I had to figure it out on my own. I had to figure it out. Like I was working 30 to 40 hours a week when I was in high school, right?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, right. Uh, and it was like, all right, like, and this is what I'm about to say is kind of the classic
Mhm.
grandparent story. Oh, I would walk down a mountain and up a mountain in 4 feet of snow to go to school, right? But I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car
Mhm.
when I first started working, and I would on the weekends I would walk an hour to work and back, right? Because I was determined to
Mhm.
buy a car and life got easier and then I could make more money and I was forced, right?
Mhm.
And my dad, was a partier. So, you know, on Friday, if he wasn't home by 6 o'clock, I knew he wasn't going to be home for the weekend. So again, I was I was washing my own clothes, cooking my own meals, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
uh it amazes me, right? Like I'm probably the kid that should have never made it, right? I got into
Mhm.
trouble, right? I had to figure
Oh,
things out, right? I was figuring things out, but I was still getting in trouble. I was 16, 17 years old, right? Like 15
yeah.
years old, right? But all my friends went to college and I stayed home. I worked a year because I was like, all right, I'm just going to make money and kind of figure this out.
Uh-huh.
It kind of amazes me when people aren't, when people, this is not a judgment. This is curiosity,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
When people aren't set up to succeed, where like the odds are against them, or you don't have the best, that I was like, oh, why don't you just shift to figuring it out, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, uh,
Mhm.
there's story after story about people coming from being super poor to super rich, or whatever. And I think it was just the fact that I always had a growth mindset. How am I going to do this? I kept asking myself, how am I going to do this? What do I do? What do I change?
Mhm.
What do I got to do better? So the fact that you've had a growth mindset since five or being young, I definitely honor that. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, it's amazing what you're telling us. Because what the words that resonate with me is persistence and grit.
Yeah.
It comes out off of you very clearly when you were telling what you were telling me. It's very clearly, and I think that's also one of the keys where a lot of people get stuck in. And I've been absolutely that person. A couple of years back, something didn't work after 2 weeks. "Ah, I'm going to try something else.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
oh yeah,
Totally.
let's do another thing. But now I'm at a point where, well, let's take for instance, literally this podcast. I started with this in December, and I enjoy doing it. It's so easy for me because it's just a conversation. You go in a deep conversation. It's nice, and to me, this is my way of showing myself to the world by connecting to the right people and so on. And it's like I want to continue with this thing to at least, so I put my mark now at 20 episodes, just being a
Oh,
small step.
yep,
But
yep.
I hear then, there's like 90% of the podcasts don't hit the 20 mark or the 50
Right.
mark or whatever, and I'm like, okay, so we hit 20, let's go there, and now next step will be 50. And if you set yourself for, it's not about how much income do you get from it, it's how much the passion can continue. And that's one of the things that I've learned out of so many failing moments, that the persistence and the grit of continuing what you're doing against all odds, not seeing a lot of results or whatever, is what gets you results. Because I've
Yes.
been reading, I don't know have if I have the book here, but I think it's called Compound Interest or
Oh,
something.
yeah, compound
Compound.
effect. Compound
Yes,
effect.
man.
Yep, I've
That
read
is
that. That's
it's
great.
an amazing book. Wow. Wow. And then, combine that with the one thing. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Yep.
it, that's like the secret sauce. And I see that in a lot of entrepreneurs who start off, who say, I don't want to work for a boss anymore. And that's the only thing that they're thinking about. I don't want to work
Yep.
for a boss anymore. And they're not thinking about, okay, you're going to be doing all the administration, all the marketing, all of this, all of that, all of that. And then you're going to be doing what you like. And
Yep.
they kind of forget all these other things, like, well, yeah, somebody else is going to do it. Nope, nope, nobody else is going to do it for you. And that's one of the things that I always want to make clear to a lot of people. When you hit a certain point of success, you've done all that, and
Yes.
then you go to the point where you delegate. And so, like you said, within the organization it's bigger, so you can delegate, and you learn to delegate, and you start thinking of, what are the things that don't give me energy. I'll
Yes.
give that to somebody who gets energy out of them. And I've always found it so amazing how many different kind of jobs there are, and people that enjoy that job.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
It's
and God bless them. God bless them, right?
absolutely,
God
yes,
bless them,
indeed,
right?
indeed.
When you can find the right mix of people, uh, in conjunction with your personality and what gives you energy, it's lights out, right? It's lights out. But it takes grit and persistence to get there, right?
Yes.
There's this guy I've been following for a while here, Patrick Bet David.
Oh yeah, I know
He's got
him.
a podcast. He sold an insurance company for, I think it's like 250 million, $400 million.
Mhm.
And he said the number one thing that's important for entrepreneurs, specifically the ones that, or yeah, specifically for ones that are really successful, is they outlast the other entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's basically persistence and grit. Is I'm not giving up. I'm constantly learning, because there's going to be people falling left and right next to me, or just resigning to the level they're at, and I'm going to supersede them, right? And two, because I cross on the coaching side, basically everybody that I work with is somebody who developed some skill or expertise of something in corporate America, and now they're utilizing that to serve small and medium-sized business owners. And I've learned to, when I'm doing group sessions or talking to people, I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving home the fact that you need to lose the employee mindset, right? Because the employee mindset is what's
Indeed.
keeping you stuck, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
you have the label of an entrepreneur, but you do not have the embodiment of one, or the mindset of one, right? I'm sure you see
Oh,
that.
you're wow, wow, that is so on it. You know, right now I have somebody like two stories down here who's starting her own business, and she comes from the employee mindset. So
Yeah.
my partner is starting, she's a VA, so she kind of
Okay.
starts her business, and she does just VA and language lessons. So she
Oh.
German, English, and Dutch, and
Oh, interesting.
for other people who talk other languages, she teaches Dutch, and then the rest is all other languages for people that talk Dutch. But she started, I think it was June last year, thinking about starting a business. She left the company and then was like, okay, but she comes out of a very deep depression and a physical, complete crash.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's really, she lifted the mask of all those years and started living her personality again. So I'm amazed. I'm so proud of my wife. Really, really, really am. And so I have this conversation almost, I think, twice a week about the difference between employee and being an entrepreneur, or just an independent force. And what I found recently is, the paycheck talk. You know, what are
Yeah.
we going to, have left, and what are we going to do? And I'm like, almost all the time I'm thinking, so what's the next investment? I'm not even talking about my paycheck. I'm thinking, what's the
Exactly.
what's the next investment? It's like I invest currently. I'm investing to a high tier, high premium coach, and it
Yep.
costs me a lot of money. So it really, puts me in a tight spot. But the amazing thing is, by being in that tight spot, you want to go on. You want to,
Yes.
the next level. It's somewhere there, and I want to do this thing. And it's, as an employee, you would never accept being in a tight spot. You would go to your boss and say, "I'm sorry, I have too much work. 9 to 5. Sorry, I'm
Yep.
past five." And I never had that. I did overtime like a crazy nut person.
Yeah.
I was just continuing working. My bosses loved me. Of course,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
loved me.
totally. Totally.
But it's the difference, and it took me a long time to realize that. So I think about, in the meantime, about 15 years ago, I almost started my own business as well, as a what do you call it, you know a, uh, a guy that can do little things around the house.
Oh, yeah, yeah, like a handyman?
A handyman. Thank you very much. That's the
Yeah,
word I
yeah,
was looking for.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So like a real full blown handyman, full time, and it's booming business here. These guys
Really?
have a lot of work. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. They are really, they're just the money just comes in. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of
It is.
work. So at that point, we were like, okay, children or a business. Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, children. So now I now have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old
Awesome.
who are also my business. But anyway,
Yeah,
and
I hear you. I
it's just
gotta
much work as an entrepreneurship.
oh, yeah, I got an 11 and an 8-year-old. I got
Oh,
one home,
there you go.
as I was saying, right? Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
You know, and
that's kind of
I
interesting.
tell people, too, like, nobody owes you anything.
Mm,
Right? Like, you get in front of prospects, and you talk about how valuable you are. They don't owe you anything. They don't owe you to hire you. Uh, and in the corporate world, you're paid for what you know and getting a task done. And in
mhm.
entrepreneurship, you're paid to create value. They're
Ah,
two completely different things, right? So
perfect.
it doesn't, when you're out there selling, or working to get clients, um, they don't care about your past. They care about their future. Right?
Yes,
And that's
indeed.
where the value is created, right? They don't care about your resume. They don't care. They assume that if you're sitting in front of them, you're most likely good at what you do. Uh, they want to know that you understand them, you
Mhm,
understand their problems, and you can create value for them to go, yes, right? To make the investment in you.
mhm,
Uh, and I see the same thing. It's like, oh, people are like, oh, well, I don't have money to do this or that. And I'm like, it's not a line item. It's not an expense. It's an investment,
indeed.
right? You have to look at ROI on everything,
Yep.
ROI on everything, right? And it's
Yep.
fascinating to me you know, the the way people think. It's fascinating, right? You left corporate America, but corporate America wasn't taken out of you,
No, that's a good one. That's absolutely a good
right?
one. Yeah, yeah. I heard. I think it was Jimmy Carr who said, "Look at an item in a shop and see if you will still be using it in 5 years' time
Mm.
or in 10 years' time, and if you're absolutely sure, then you'll buy it."
Yep. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's the same
Yep.
way. It's like it's an investment for 5 years, and that's the depreciation you're gonna get, and the ROI is there. How many I don't know, we got this thing that makes cheese grinder.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
if
Yeah.
if that lasts 5 years, it's a good investment.
Yep.
I think it was last time when my wife was looking at this online shop and was like, "Oh, yeah, this brand and that brand and brand." 5 years, good investment, yes. And she was looking at me, it's like I said, well, that's how I think these days. If it lasts longer than 5 years, I'm okay with it. 10 years, that's amazing. If it's under the 5 years, we need to change the brand. It's like, yeah, you look at the world completely differently. It's the same thing with your time. To me,
Oh,
honestly,
oh,
I
yeah.
I am so grateful for each and every person like yourself, taking the time to come on the podcast because you're a busy guy. This if in this time while you're talking to me, you could bill a customer
Yep.
that's money that's lost between brackets,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's a good conversation, so that's gonna be fine. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think the same way too now. It's like, hey, like there's we just had our when it was cold here, like maybe February, uh like minus 20 Fahrenheit
Okay.
for like a week straight. And my outside water spigot was w- uh had a slow leak in it, right? And I spent about, you know, an hour or two looking at it. And after that, I was like, I'm wasting my time. Like, I'm gonna
Mhm,
go pay somebody $250 to fix this so I can go back inside and go prospect or get a client because
mhm.
the delta on that, like, if I make $1,000 an hour and I pay 250, I still made $750, right?
Yep, yep,
Uh, I
indeed.
don't need to fix it. I don't need
Yeah,
somebody else to fix it, right?
absolutely,
And I
and they'll
look at
enjoy it.
yeah, exactly. They're good at it. I'm not good at it. Like, I try to watch YouTube and can't find the answer on YouTube, so, you know
How to change a faucet. Yeah,
one trip to the hardware store and back, and that thing didn't work. I'm like, "No, I'm done," right? Uh,
I
but it
can
it is you
I
have
can
to
see
look at everything like that, right? Like,
Mhm,
you know, even back to the delegation or,
mhm,
partnering with people that are good at things other than you, right? Like, it like, when it comes to administration, that takes, time,
mhm.
energy, lots of energy, a lot of headspace for me. So I start pushing that off to somebody else, right? I'm just even if I can do it, I push it off to somebody else because I make money being in front of people,
Mhm.
talking to people, and putting myself in any situation where sales and everything else should be done by somebody else.
True. The only thing that I love keeping to myself is sending the invoice.
Ah, no. Well, I do it once. You put it on Stripe, and Stripe does it over and over and over again, right?
Yes, indeed. No, it's true. Yeah, I noticed that last year where I was working in the garden, and I've got this, hedge cutting machine and all that stuff, and I was like, my arms are sore. What's this? My God. I've been in my office for like 2 years sitting down. I don't have any muscle mass anymore. I used to do a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty handy. This whole room I built it myself because I
Really?
wanted to. Yeah, but
Wow.
that's okay. But I'm so fed up with doing it because in the end, I know the bits and cracks that are here, what hasn't been finished and so on, so I can actually look at the ground and so I'd rather somebody else think about that now.
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But so I was working in the garden and I was telling my wife, I'm like, this hedge, I'm not doing it anymore. And she's like, but who's gonna do it? I said, I'm gonna find somebody. And
Yeah.
I met somebody really, I was driving home from the office and I saw this guy doing the work and there was no advertising on the van or anything. I stopped and I said, can you do my hedge in like at least this week or next week? And he said, I'll talk to my boss, no problem. I said, okay. Yeah. And like a couple of days later, his boss was at the door. He said, it's 150 euros just to do the whole hedge, and I'll do the rest of the garden for 250. I'm like, go right ahead,
Oh,
man. This is
yeah.
like,
Oh,
oh, yeah. And I
yeah.
was spending my time looking for customers, and I found one at the time, so that was good.
Yep. As we talk here, what's coming to mind for me is entrepreneurship. Having wealth in the outer world and the inner world with entrepreneurship is all about how you think.
Oh yeah.
End of story, right? Uh, because as I grow, uh, my inner world, right, my outer world grows, right? It's proportionate, almost, right? Uh, I had somebody I got to know. We were going to talk about working together, but uh, I talked to her 6 months into her entrepreneurial journey. She's like, "Yeah, let's reconnect in a year." And a year, we got on Zoom, and
Hmm.
she started off the meeting with, Brian, I did not know a year ago, when I started my business, that I was on a personal growth journey. I thought I was on a business journey. And I said, you hit the nail on the head. Like, you're realizing something that a lot of people don't.
True.
And I'm glad she did, because I think that's when you can start making happen what you want to happen.
You're taking ownership.
Yes.
You're taking ownership. That's when I was in the corp world, and you can imagine IBM is like a
Oh, yeah.
huge company, and before that I worked for Verizon, so
Oh,
huge as well. It's always funny. I always work for American companies and I live in Europe, so it's kind of contradiction there. But yeah, I thought I was going to change America from Europe.
yeah, there you go.
But
Okay, that's good.
when I was there, I had a job and I had so-called, and I'm holding my fingers here up,
Yeah.
responsibilities. But at the end of the day, I put down my phone, put down my car keys, put away my laptop, and nobody was going to complain about what I did that day.
Yeah.
As long, of course, you didn't mess up,
Yeah.
something big. But in entrepreneurship, you don't take ownership. There's nobody going to save your business.
No.
There's nobody, and it's daunting on one side, but it's freeing on the other side. It's like you have everything in hand to make your business a success,
Yep.
and you have everything in hand to go beyond that business success and find a lot more fulfillment than in a corp job,
Mhm.
because I did not find any fulfillment there. I had accolades, I had success, I had everything, but at the end of the day, I was an empty vat coming home, sitting in
Yep.
the chair and just looking at a screen with some movement on it, and it didn't fulfill me. These days, like, I have conversations with such beautiful, interesting people that
Yeah.
you just enjoy it every time. It's completely different. So yeah, no, it's I understand exactly what you mean. It's a journey. It's a journey.
100%. And it's embracing the hard things, right? There's
Mhm.
I don't know, there's some American personal growth guy. Uh, I heard him say, I forget who it was, is choose your hard, right? It's going to be, hard going to a corporate job on a daily basis, and responding to the people you don't want to respond, be accountable to the people you don't want to be accountable to, making the amount of money that you can make capped, or you can jump ship on this side and you can control your future, uh,
Mhm.
but it's still going to be hard, right? Like, so I'd rather work through this hard stuff to
Hmm.
get the things that I want than rather put up with hard stuff and realize that I'm nothing's going to change. Nothing,
Hmm.
right? And it's embracing, it's just embracing it, right? In the nonprofit, we have a saying, because you just said something, it's the journey continues, right? The journey continues, it because it always does. It's actually never ending. There
Mm.
is no destination, right?
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
once I realized there's no destination, it's like, oh, okay, right. This is just about maneuvering through anything that comes my way at any point in time, and taking responsibility for it.
Well, if that's not a way to end a podcast, there's no.
Oh.
Wow, there's no destination. That's a beautiful one. Absolutely. Bryan, I think this has been a beautiful conversation. I actually picked up a couple of great things from you. I hope you had a couple from me. So where can people find you? Because I think there are a lot of people who have questions about what you told us.
No, this was great too, Nico. I definitely learned some stuff from you, and always having great conversations like this. So, everybody can find me at a personal website. It's my last name, first name, McDonald Bryan with a Y. You kind of see there on the screen. And then onpurposegrowth.com is my company's website. And then I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and all of my social media, like my personal website. My handles are McDonald Bryan. So LinkedIn.com
Oh,
forward
I
slash
see.
N McDonald Bryan. So I keep it consistent. Twitter's like that, Instagram's like that.
Yeah.
And I encourage anybody to reach out. I don't bite. And I love having conversations like this.
So yeah, listeners, absolutely, you need to take the time to talk to Bryan. I think you're going to have an amazing time. I had one. So thank you very much for your time, Bryan. I know you have a very busy schedule, so I'm going to leave you to it, and I'm going to leave the customers, of course, your customers, the listeners as well, to a next episode. So thank you very much,
Thank
and
you. Appreciate you.
it is likewise, absolutely. So thank you very much for listening to this podcast episode with Bryan McDonald, and you'll find all his links in the show notes. So certainly go there, and hear you next time, everybody. Bye bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments, or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.